Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and today we're going to take a look at the late round sluggers. That's right. Everybody likes power on their teams, but sometimes you don't want to pay for it. You want a little bit of a discount, so we're going to give that to you today, looking at some of the players outside the top 200 ADP that fit that bill. We've gone pretty deep on some of these names. Some will be familiar, maybe a few still we have to sell you on, but regardless, these are the top 20 guys. We've each made a list of 10, and joining me today on the show, as always, my good friend, the Welsh, Chris Welsh. He has got his sexy voice too today because he's a little under the weather, but to me, that makes the show all the more appealing.
Yeah, that's good if it's a little sexy voice. It's a little bit deeper, everybody. Hello.
Yeah, this is my co-host Tom Waits for the next hour. It's not even going to be that long, folks. It won't only be an hour show.
Can we talk some sluggers, though, please?
I like the sluggers and the ADP. I love Tom. Tom Waits should do a sports podcast now that I think about it. And maybe I'm dating myself with a Tom Waits.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't do a whole lot of Tom Waits in my life. No,
I love Tom
kids
Waits.
don't like the Tom Waits.
Yeah, what do you think of JD Martinez? He's classic. I think he's timeless. But anyway, let's get to some of these names on the list. Before we do, just a quick reminder too, the Wizard is open for business. That's right. Your letter to Hogwarts is waiting around the corner and a trip to the championship. But it all starts now. You have to use the Wizard. The 2023 MLB Draft Wizard is open, so you can get all your mock drafts on. Go to fantasypros.com/draftwizard, or just get the Fantasy Pros app too, and you can do all of your mock drafting till the cows come home. And I don't know where they've been, but they've been out late. They've probably been drinking. But in 10 minutes, have some fun, run some mock drafts, start your preparation now, start to see the board, because the board in January is going to evolve into February, and you're going to see some of these names start to change. So it's good to start preparing and get an idea of where some of those ADPs are. And speaking of those ADPs, let's kick off with Welsh's number 10 outside the top 200, where you might find a little bit of pop.
You know, we talked about this guy, I think in the last couple episodes. And when you're looking outside the top 200 ADP, there's some interesting names. There's some really good hitters overall. I'm not the biggest on this guy, but if we are going to make any definition of like sluggers looking for 15 or more homers post 200, I do think it is still hard to deny Ketel Marte, Fantasy Pros ADP, which I just want to shout out. There is not a lot of ADP out there. There is NFBC ADP, which is a little bit of a different beast. ESPN just opened their product. It's a product, I guess. It's a thing. We just did a mock draft, which, by the way, I want to point out something I wanted to add to your read. We hooked it up to the Draft Wizard, and hilariously, I loved my own draft. You hated my draft. You hated my draft that I put together in a 12-team.
I'm glad I hated your draft. But that's one of the great things is you get all the insights. And if you're a premium member, you get even more insights, and you can put your keepers in the Draft Wizard stuff, which is so cool. So if what round you have them in, like it's pretty sophisticated. I don't think people out there still realize just how sophisticated this product is, especially when you are upgraded your membership from free to something else, because especially in these baseball leagues, we have all these keepers and rounds attached to them that you can run these drafts with those players in there. That's invaluable. But continue on about my hatred. Yes, I'd like to hear more.
No. Well, and also like these sites' projections are wild. So it was good to kind of stabilize it with Fantasy Pros. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. But they don't have ADP. And so I just want to point out, it is great that there is ADP information out there on Fantasy Pros. You can just type in, a good thing to do is, Fantasy Pros Baseball ADP, and it'll pop up and you can start to take a look. And one of those that jumps out is Ketel Marte. And Ketel's offensive upside seems a little bit staggered right now. But what I would say this, it's always hard hit. BatX projections have him at 18 homers. He's touched 30 before. He's going to be the number 3 hitter for Arizona, which is going to be a little bit sneaky. And you're going to get 15 plus homer power from him with, I think, more potential upside and more RBI. And it's post 200. Fantasy Pros current ADP 212 that you can get him right now. So you want to talk about some late sluggers. Maybe this isn't the traditional slugger. This is a really good homer value of 15 plus post 200 at a really crappy position, by the way.
And he just actually showed up on our previous list, which is kind of interesting, where you are not a huge fan, yet here we are. And it just goes to show you, we're all about business here on the show. It's not about personal preference. It's about winning. That's it.
He's my guy. That's my guy, by the way, on my team. Like, I want to vote for, I want to root for him. His value is what makes him so exponentially interesting right now compared to where you ever had to pay for him.
Now, the next guy on my list, number 10, maybe a guy who you want on your fantasy team, but you don't want in your fantasy league. It's Joc Pederson. That's right. You want Joc Pederson for that little bit of extra power that he provides. Last year, 23 homers. Right now, the current ADP of Joc Pederson is sitting around 224, 225, depending on the hour. And look, left-handed power bat, he is just 30. I think people forget that it's been around so long. Last year, he did 247 ISO. You look at his high watermark for home runs, it was 36 just in 2019 with the Dodgers. And going back here with the San Francisco Giants last year, to me, it's all about playing time for him. 137 games in 2021, combined with two teams, 134 last year. There's no reason not to think that he is going to be somewhere around that mark as well. The thing with Pederson is they do come in bunches, which makes him a tough sell in any head-to-head format. But in this roto season long, you set it and forget it. I think it's at least a minimum of 25 in that range with upside for more, especially since, I think when you go out, you bring in another bat like Conforto, who we're going to talk about in a second, who I might as well just talk about because he's my number 9. Conforto's another guy at 233, who I think also fits that bill. My concern is a slow start for Conforto, who did not play all of last season with injury for the New York Mets. He was dealing with the shoulder surgery. Nobody signed him. So a year off is a little concerning. If he has a regular offseason at this point, and he was healthy at the end of last year, some teams were considering signing him. This is a guy that, somewhere around 28 and a half home runs is kind of his average from 2017 to 2019. It's a great opportunity. Both these guys, left-handed sluggers. So there might be some stretches where they're facing tough lefties and those head-to-head formats with daily transactions. You might want to pull them out. But overall, I think if you draft these two guys in San Francisco, you have a good chance to probably get 50-plus homers between the two of them. And I do believe that even if Conforto is a slow starter, this is a player that if you don't draft him, you can certainly trade for too. Give me your number 9 guy, Welsh, on your list of late-round sluggers.
Yeah, this is another guy I think is just a really good value right now. If you're looking at, again, another position that isn't great. Second base isn't great. Third base isn't great. He's got an ADP. This is in the higher 200s of 215, though, on Fantasy Pros. It's Josh Jung with the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
Josh Jung hit 5 homers last year in around 26 games, missed a ton of time. This is a big power bat, a big contact bat that gets into power. It's kind of reminiscent of I always use Goldie as a gold standard of players, no pun intended, of dudes that, tap into power that are not trying to. That's kind of how Josh Jung is. Also a little bit faster. Current projections, Steamer's at 19, BATX is at 17. This is only over 120 games if they're building an injury. If there's not, and you get a whole full 150 out of him, you're looking at 20 plus across the board at not a good position. One of the better young bats that still exist out there and that would be vying for Rookie of the Year. We're talking about Gunnar Henderson and Corbin Carroll and all those guys. But don't forget, Josh Jung is still technically rookie eligible, and he'll be one of those guys that gets full season run on probably a pretty good team. So I'm not a big anti-Josh Jung guy. The big outlier is he struck out 38% of the time in major leagues and 28% of the time in AAA this year. He had never gone 23% of the time in his entire career. And we talked about it. He just missed so much time. There was so much time that was missed in there. So good contact bat, tapping into power, showed the power at the major leagues, even with the strikeout rate. I think he's going to be 20 plus, and he is post 200 on Fantasy Pros ADP.
That is a good thing. We like that. Next on my list, he is at ADP of 235. So as you can see in this kind of 220 to 240 range, there's some bats here that you get some pretty good value on if you're looking for some utility bats or some outfield depth. This next guy is corner guy Triston Casas of the Boston Red Sox. Now, again, just 23 years old, so this is a little bit of a reach. I think 15 is in his grasp as long as he keeps his job and plays every day. And the Boston Red Sox at this point have no reason not to do that and continue to turn the page and look to the future because they are not quite a contender this year, in my opinion. I don't care what anybody's trying to sell me on this Mondesi trade. Like all of a sudden, that's going to be the cure-all for the Boston Red Sox.
Come on, it's not. Joe, that's not the guy.
And left-handed power in Fenway Park is traditionally a good thing. So you look at the slugging percentage, 485 in the minor leagues. But again, a young player. This is a kid drafted out of high school, so this is a guy that will continuously grow into that power. So I think 15 is a good baseline, but I do think 20 is possible if things break right. Maybe a strong second half, maybe some strong work at home in those splits. That's something to pay attention to. This is a player, too, I think you pay a lot of attention to in those daily transaction formats where you're putting guys in and out of lineups. If you think it's a good matchup, or if he's on a hot streak, you play him. If he's not, you sit him. But regardless, I think this is a player with talent. This is a player they're trying to build the future with. So even if he does struggle, kind of like Kansas City with Bobby Witt last year, just leave him alone. Leave him alone. Let him figure it out. Give him the confidence to continue on. And I think if everything breaks right, he can get over that 20 mark. Do you think I'm reaching here with that?
No, I would have had him on my list. I would have had him on my list had you not put him on here. 100%.
Great. Look, see, we do like
had him higher
other.
too.
I don't care what the draft wizard says.
I actually want to point out, I would have had him higher than you have him on this list had you not picked him. I probably would have put him at like 5 or 4 or 5 on this list. So I really like it.
The only reason is, with the young players, we do get that thing where we get excited and they come up there and then they just flatline. And that is, as my friend Derek Brown likes to say, in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, but in the range of outcomes, we're also talking about guys that are post 200, post 300. These are players that are immense values. And this is what this round and these rounds sometimes consist of. Questionable playing time around young players or unproven young players, and then kind of stinky veterans. You know what I mean? Like the Adam Duvals of the world and stuff like that. So you've got to take your shot. So yes, there's a wide range of outcomes that exist with these guys, but if you're looking to hit a home run, these are the type of guys that get you there, especially these young bats that people are just, there's prospect fatigue. They're not quite sold on completely. Triston Casas is the prime example, I think, of this conversation.
Love it. All right. So Triston Casas, guy we both endorsed, 235 ADP, number 8 on my list. Let's go to number 8 on your list. Who is it?
This one, it's not a cheat. I'm not trying to completely cheat here, though. I was trying to cheat behind the scenes with Joe. I kept being like, can I get this guy who's not quite a slugger?
What about this guy? And he's in, he's 199 or define slugger. A lot of air
slugger was more of the question, because I think there's some good value hitters. And one of them I'm going to throw out to you is not a traditional classical slugger, but it is Oswald Peraza with the New York Yankees. And there's a couple of reasons behind this. Oswald Peraza is, for all intents and purposes, going to be given the gig in New York. He has a chance to lose it. He has a chance. Obviously, he's been given the opportunity to take it. What's interesting about him, in the minors in 2022, hit 19 homers with 33 stolen bases in 99 games. Comes up to the majors, hits a homer, a couple stolen bases, hits 300, no big deal. Set to play this year. Projections, if you go and look, he'll only be 7 homers, 10 stolen bases, or 8 homers, 10 stolen bases, depending what projection system you look at. But the games are in the 60s, 70s. So if he is a full-time player this year, projections all but guarantee he is a 15-20 guy. Little bit of a smaller build type of player, 6 foot, 200 at shortstop, but he's got a big power swing. And I wouldn't be shocked if he tapped into 20, especially in New York's environment. But if we can define sluggers at 15, you're also going to get a little bit of a sneak. You're going to get the sneak. You're going to get the steals.
Sneaky.
And maybe a batting average. Exactly. And guess what? The biggest thing I didn't tell you on his ADP, 444. On NFBC, Fantasy Pros ADP. NFBC is probably way, way lower. And this is the potential New York Yankees shortstop.
Yeah, look, Yankees have some talent coming through. There's no doubt about that. I got to watch, because now the local affiliate here, 15 minutes from my house, turned over. Used to be the Independent League Somerset Patriots. Now they're the AA Yankees. So I got to see Volpe a few times play in person.
Yeah, you and I chatted about when you got to see Volpe, who
and he hit a home run the day I was there. Actually, no, he hit a ball off the wall that should have been a home run the day I was there in a park that didn't have a wall that was 500 feet high. But very impressive player too. This one is impressive also. They've got Jason Dominguez. People are polarized on him, what they think of him, but there's a lot of makings of another, turnover into the Yankees. And it's going to be fascinating to see just how fast that happens and what the need is for that. Because look, you could see some of these guys at major league level continuing to be okay, or Gleyber Torres. Does he revert back to bad Gleyber Torres this year? Like there's a lot of questions
trade him. There are a lot of trade rumors around Gleyber Torres.
They could. Look, I give Cashman credit. How he's been GM this long in that organization is stunning to me. Like
without
in
winning?
New York, in that city, and without winning, that also matters. But they put a good product on the field. It is all that matters. They haven't won the big one, but they do win a lot. That's the difference, I guess.
What did they do? Convince baseball to give those cheat balls to Aaron Judge for the home run. I mean, they've done some really good stuff out there, Joe.
That's a good thing. I mean, heck, I could use some of those right now. All right, let's get to the next guy on my list. Number 7, it's Lane Thomas, outfielder of the Washington Nationals. Now, This is a volume play, boys and girls. I don't love Lane Thomas. I'm not completely buying what I saw last year with the 17 home runs, but can he get you 15 to 20 again this year? I think the answer is yes. Is it going to come with a 240 batting average? Probably. That's probably what we're looking at here. But when you're looking at the guys who, and roster resource has them hitting at the top of the lineup right now in Washington, when you have the extra at-bats, when you have the extra moments there, sometimes that volume, just like in baseball and football, the same thing, volume can be king. So getting more opportunities in those season-long roto leagues where you're looking to compile a bit, players like this who are very cheap are worth a look at that. He is right now the ADP of 261. There's some players going after him that I think are better players that I'm going to talk about. But this is another one where I think it's more of a volume play than anything for me. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Lane Thomas real quick?
Yeah, I've always Lane is one of those when he gets to lead off, if he's put in that position again, it's just sneaky runs. I actually saw him in fall league when he used to play with the Cardinals. Yeah, I think he's like a low end homer guy that's going to get, I think he has the potential to be at upwards of a solid 3 category player, maybe pushes 4. And it just depends where you're going to step off from. I like this one. I like that you did it because I think he fits more like my Oswald Peraza, where this is not a traditional slugger. This is a good hitter that might tap into 15 homers later in rounds.
Yeah, and he is over at, 377 where he's at right now. So,
pretty good value.
That's a pretty darn good value there at that moment. All right, let's get to the next guy on your list, who's number 7 for some late round slugging.
So I've got some trends here, and I'm going to throw a lot of these younger guys out here because you're getting big ADP values, and this one isn't immense unless he's starting. And we're in this really weird space right now. It's funny enough, I'm going to be doing a rookie panel more for 2014 on our friends of our pitcher list for PitchCon.
Yes,
it's probably already
happened. I will also be appearing on PitchCon on Friday. Me and I am doing a panel there. I'm the host between a fight between Nick Pollock and Eno Saris regarding pitchers.
Oh,
I've
heard
ADP.
of them. I've heard of those little guys.
I don't know if they're new to the baseball world, but
they're
that should be a good time.
They're blessed
Friday,
to have you on.
I believe it's 2:00 or 3:00. I gotta look. I will.
Mine's already over.
Yours is already over by the time this came out.
You can go back and watch the replay. Yours is, what time is it at? Friday when?
It is 2:00. 2:00 Eastern.
Okay,
that should be
perfect.
a good time.
24 hours from when we're recording this.
There you go.
But we're going to be talking about 2024 rookies, and I've got a couple cool people doing it. I'm hosting that. But my point is we're in this space right now where we've got these rookies that we just are waiting for teams to make full commitments. And that's why their ADPs are too low. And that is why Miguel Vargas is too low right now. He has a 281 ADP. There's a couple other guys we're going to talk about. If the team made the commitment, people would start going all in, but they haven't. Miguel Vargas has been working at second base. He's a guy that can play third, first, outfield. There are positions open. I have a hard time believing the Dodgers are going to start the season with Trayce Thompson in the outfield. That's me, though. And
the Dodgers have a lot of questions to answer, too. Is Luck's going to be that guy? Like, they have a lot.
Well,
there's a lot
James
of...
Outman?
I don't know, man. They've got a lot of explaining to do before we get to opening day.
a lot of explaining to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Miguel Vargas is a very, very, probably one of the most patient, better contact hitters here. Sub 20% K rate, like his entire minor leagues. He came up in the majors, played a little bit, hit a homer. Projections around 100 games-ish are already at like the 13-14 marker. If he plays a full season, he is 20 plus. This will be one of those guys that's in the rookie of the year race if he's there. And I think he's a really good value. This is one of those rookies I want to take a bet on because the Dodgers have positions open and they want to push. He is one of the reasons why Justin Turner is not back, why they didn't go make some big splashes is because they've got Miguel Vargas and they want to get him out there. It'll be a testament if Trayce Thompson and James Outman play over Miguel Vargas and he's sent to the minors. I don't believe that's going to happen. And Miguel Vargas is an easy 15 plus homer potential slugger, and he's almost around 300 on ADP.
Yeah. All right. Next guy on my list for number 6. I'm just a sucker for Trey Mancini, 269 ADP overall right now. And look, Trey Mancini is on the Cubs now, and I think a lock in a good ballpark once again to go over that 20 home run mark. Like, to me, like you can set your watch to Trey Mancini. Is he going to go back to the 35 days in Baltimore and the height of Camden Yards? Probably not. But Chicago can be a really good hitter's ballpark, a very good home run friendly ballpark, especially in the summertime. So there's a lot to like here. It's funny, the lineup itself, Welsh, this is kind of a take as I was looking at it here on Roster Resource as we're doing the show. The Cubs lineup looks like if you are in a salary cap draft and you set your auto to, I only want to spend a moderate amount. And that's exactly the roster of the Chicago Cubs. Do you agree with this opening day roster?
It kind of looks like it. Like
right?
you stuck around to buy Dansby Swanson, but then something happened and you had to leave. And then all of a sudden,
kid had a soccer game or something came up.
You're like, oh, I have Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini.
Well, that's what I mean. Like it's like Nico Horner,
Chris
Ian
Morel.
Happ, Suzuki, Mancini, Cody Bellinger. You're like, it's like, okay, like Tucker Barnhart, like, oh, okay, like these guys are all okay, but nothing or low or less than okay, rosterable, but it totally has the feel of, I said it, something happened and I had to get auto picked, but not in a snake draft, specifically a salary cap draft, because
you know what?
You could see like people didn't want to bid up some of these guys, so you just got them at their regular price.
Let me throw this out to you because my number 6 is also a Chicago Cub, and it's the same vein of what we've been talking about, and it's Matt Mervis. There.
Okay, let's talk about Mervis.
And it's a little bit dicey.
Farther down the trough here. Was he 3 something here?
Yeah, his ADP, I just went away from it, is 395, way down there. But I almost had Trey Mancini on this as well because those two are going to be the future. Hosmer is the great equalizer here. How much of a team leader is he going to be? They can jump off the commitment. Matt Mervis has to have a great spring. But let's get back to this conversation of sluggers with value. Pending the format that you're playing in is probably dependent on like the risks and the shots you take and how many players and stuff like that. But Matt Mervis got a 395 ADP right now, and for reasons, because he doesn't have a gig. But even projections that have not made any adjustments, maybe, is 15 plus homers in 118 games. So if he gets out there and gets games in, he's going to hit homers. This team is going to have a very difficult time not letting him get at bats this year. The guy pushed up to AAA. He played in the fall league. He's a little bit older. It's time in some capacity. So he'll be there. When he's there, he will hit moonshots. It's what he does. I've got video of them on my Twitter at @IsItTheWelsh if you want to see them. It's a beautiful home run swing. He, all the same stuff again. He decreased his strikeout percentage at every level. He was increasing his batting average, his ISO. Is a big power hitter. Even if he gets 80 games in this year, he might push 15 homers. So post 400, if you're in a deep league, if you're in a draft and hold, he's a guy you look at.
He's free
maybe
right
otherwise,
now,
you just pay attention to him in season for waiver wire. If he doesn't make the roster and he's sent to AAA, someone should be top priority on the April list. But he is a late slugger that is probably going to put, I guarantee you, he will push 15 homers if he plays 80 plus games.
I was just going to ask you, what's the number to get to 15 homers? Has it got to be like 85 games? Is that your number? 100 games?
Let's just go broke and let's say 80 games. He's going to hit 15 homers.
Like it. All right. So Matt Mervis on Welsh's list. Okay. Next guy on my list, number 5. Ooh, we're in the top 5 now. Very exciting.
There we go.
This is a player that I was not excited about last year. I hated this trade last year. I was very vocal about it. I have 0 shares last year of Jesse Winker, but not this year. Not this year. I am back on the Jesse Winker bandwagon. You know why? Because the ADP is now 289. That's why. And he's in Milwaukee, a very home run friendly ballpark. So you go to Seattle, leaving Cincinnati. I did not like that at all. I thought that was a terrible situation there. Now he's in the Milwaukee Brewers situation, probably going to hit 3rd or maybe 5th in that lineup. Different projections will show you different spots. I would not be shocked if he ended up hitting in the 3 spot. But this is a great opportunity to get back to the National League Central, division he's familiar with, travel patterns he's familiar with. But and I know, Milwaukee, good place to hit home runs. That's why Christian Yelich's last 2 years are so depressing. But I will say this. Now he is such a value, Welsh. I will be back in. He has his deficits. There's no doubt about that. Winker is not a player that I loved, and would always go, yay, Jesse Winker. Like, I want this guy on my team all these years. When he broke out a couple years ago and was an all-star, look, it seemed as though he had really changed a lot. And then the second half, not quite as much, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt because you can't sustain the path he was on for an entire season. Yeah. That's just that's Ted Williams-y kind of stuff where you're hitting 380 for a season. That stuff's not going to happen. But I was really down on where his ADP went to with the player he told us he was and showed us he was in the minor leagues and in the Cincinnati Red system, barring that one great season. It was way too expensive last year. Now it might be way too cheap. That's my thoughts on Jesse Winker. And I think he's a lock to hit 20.
Also there were so many questions around his work ethic, and I feel like that is going to be something a player like him is going to want to touch on. Like there's a lot of Padres work ethic questions that were put out there that I'm kind of in. I think he's a outfield stinks, and we just did a draft. Ian Bogman did on ITL, and Jesse Winker was one of those guys. When outfield gets away from you, there's a handful of players you start being like, I gotta get this. I got to make this work real quick. And Jesse Winker is one of those players because of the offensive potential in that lineup.
Well, ATC's got him at 19 home runs projection, right? And I'm not a big projection guy, but that's the highest of all the groupings. But nobody's got him less than 16. And I think that's absolutely right. Like the 24, but I think 15 to 20 is absolutely in his range. But because it's Milwaukee, and because if you look at some of the bottom feeding pitching teams, he's going to be playing Cincinnati, he's going to be playing Pittsburgh, he's going to be playing the Chicago Cubs. There's not a lot of great pitching in those organizations you're going against. Most of the great pitching happens to be on his own team, the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah.
So just from the standpoint of looking at what he's got in terms of an everyday look when they're playing in division, I think there's real opportunity for the higher end of this projection where ATC is the 19 or 20 than necessarily the 17 or 16 that you see in other spots. Welsh, let's get to another one of your names in the top 5. Who is it?
This one is it's along this line of list, and it might get people a little bit scared. Spencer Torkelson. I'm going to go back to Spencer Torkelson.
Calls coming from inside the house, Welsh.
I hear it. 279 ADP. 279 ADP. Spencer Torkelson had an atrocious year last year in the majors. We know that. He hit 203. The positives, though, he had a sub 25% K rate. He almost had a double-digit walk rate. 110 games, just did not make the contact. He needed 8 homers. Now there's a lot of debated what's going to happen with Detroit now. They're bringing in the walls, but they're also raising them. So they're raising them up like 15 feet, and they're bringing them a pretty significant amount. It's almost becoming softball range. So what is that going to do, and who's going to benefit? I believe this is a benefit to Spencer Torkelson. This is a guy that is going to be able to launch the ball in the air. A season removed. I don't believe this is going to be a nothing guy. I really do believe he can return. And you know what? Projections are kind of in that. They see a batting average around 235 on the Bat X, which is solid compared to 203. And ATC has got him at 15. Bat X has got him at 16. And this is around 130 games. He's going to play the full season. He's committed. I think a year removed from that rookie year, you're going to see adjustments. I like 20 homers out of Spencer Torkelson. I like the bounce back. This is not Jared Kelenic. And I know it's really easy to start pairing these guys up. If they're not good, they're Kelenic and Adele. That's all that they can be. And if they're good at all, they're Julio. And it's not the case. There's a middle ground in there. And some of these guys are proving that middle ground. Alec Bohm is a really good example of a guy that has found a solid middle ground of being a decent player and not, black or white. There's a gray area with it. And I think Torkelson is going to bounce back this year. It's almost 300 and it's a 20 plus homer potential. So I'm going to go with Torkelson at number 5.
All right, next guy on my list is Boomer Bust. He's at 304, so he's even further than Jesse Winker at 289 on the ADP right now. It's Juan Yepaz of the St. Louis Cardinals, and it's because he is post 300, and because I think he can still give you 15. So in terms of what this show's about, late round slugging value, like that's a huge value if he hits 15 home runs. If, of course, your guy Jordan Walker or anything else happens here, it pushes him out of town, out of the everyday lineup, that's different. Then the calculus changes on Yepez. And the nice thing about Yepez is if it doesn't work out, you cut him, you move on to the next guy. It doesn't cost you anything. That's why I like him. Love the Cardinals lineup. Love what they're doing here. From watching Yepez last year, I think he has got all the right stuff to be a good, solid major league hitter. I think he got found out a little bit last year. There's no doubt about that, but he came up red hot. And I think we all saw, okay, there's the upside. Let's see the adjustment. Now it's time to make adjustments back. And I'm curious to see if he does. Post 300, he's got my attention. If he was 250, I would be drafting Triston Casas and Trey Mancini. Like I would not even be looking. But because he's 300 in those deeper leagues, I think it's worth a shot because the return is maybe Walker stays in the minor leagues longer, or maybe he struggles if he comes to the major leagues. The trick is, can Yepez stick in that DH spot? And that's also a transition for a lot of players too. Some guys who are not used to that, having to transition to that, you only get up every, couple innings to take it at bat, and then you go sit down. That's a tough routine change, I think, for a lot of people to handle. So we'll see how he adjusts to that as well. Hopefully he can do that this year. quite a bit and understand that routine a little bit better in spring training. Like, I don't want him playing the field so much. I think he will because of spring training, but I want him to learn to adjust to what it means to be a DH, because I think potentially as a DH in the Cardinals, it's a good situation here. Let's get to number 4 on your list as a player I'm very high on. Again, all the at-bats, all the opportunity, let the kid sink or swim. And I think he's going to swim, Welsh.
So this is a cheat, but I have to talk about him because you agree. CJ Abrams.
Yeah.
CJ Abrams on my list is going to be the toughest to hit this real marker to qualify as a slugger. And at the end of the day, you're not going to consider him a slugger. You're going to consider him a 5-tool player, which is really nice. At worst, 4 tools I think you're going to get on him. But I do believe that CJ Abrams can touch and just dance around that 15 home run marker. But where I think you're really going to also benefit is 20 plus stolen bases. Projections are not there with him. And I think the projection systems on quite a few young guys that are at the very, very top of sprint speed in the entire major leagues are underselling the speed potential also with the new rules. So if you get a CJ Abrams with 12 to 15 homers and you get 20 plus stolen bases, you're probably looking at a guy that is going to be around a 4th or 5th round pick. That is where I think we can go with CJ Abrams this year. He's got an ADP of 258. RBIs might be difficult, but he might not be hitting in a spot. He's not going to be like a leadoff hitter, at least to start, unless he starts to really, swing and he really starts to go buck. But I'm a big CJ Abrams guy, low K percentages, very first at bat in pro ball at all. I was there, was the only person in the stadium, hits a home run. He can get into some of that power, there's speed. So he has him cheating, but we both really like this guy in late rounds, especially when you're chasing speed. And I think he can just be more than a 1 category player. I
am shocked that his ADP is this low to start, to be honest. I would have thought it was at minimum higher than 250. It's not. I think by the time we get to draft season, I could see it sneaking closer to 200, to be honest with you, because he's got the job. He's got the tools, as we're talking about. He's going to be hitting probably in the 2 spot in this lineup. And I know the Nationals aren't very good. Like, we all know that, but it doesn't matter. We're talking about volume and we're talking about talent. I like what I've seen from CJ Abrams, even at the major league level. I think this is a guy, this is another player that I think needs to get every day at bats. I think the sporadicness of the way he was used with the Padres at times hurt him a little bit in terms of what you saw last year. But I like CJ Abrams a ton. And I think as a keeper investment, this is a guy that as he grows into his body could be really good. He's still on the smaller side physically, but all the tools are there. I mean, it's just a matter of how quickly the development comes. And it'd be nice to have a little bit more lineup protection, but then again, it's nice to have a lot of things. Next on my list, top 3 here is Avisail Garcia of Miami. Now, last year, kind of a lost season for him, as we all know. But this is a player that I think we've seen in the past flash that 20 home run power. It's not out of the realm of possibility he gets back to that realm. 29 in 2021. Obviously, last year he only played 98 games, but still had 8 home runs in that span. But he has hit 20 home runs multiple times in his career. He is a player that never lived up to, I think, the hype of what he could be. But at the same time, if we're looking for late power and we're looking at where he's being drafted, he is sub 300. He is 312 overall. It's just about every day at bats and health. And if Garcia hits both of those benchmarks, then we're in good shape. I think he can give you 15 to 20 home runs. And that's kind of the range we keep saying here. And I know like 20 might not be, super exciting, but, the steroid era is gone. So this is what we're left with now. So now we have to be scratching and clawing for 15 to 20. But I do think Garcia, again, as long as the health works out, I think we're in a good spot with him. Let's get to somebody in your top 3. Who do you have at number 3? Because it's a player that I have been high on for quite some time and I keep getting knocked down, but I'm ready to get up one more time.
Someday, and I'm hoping it's this year, this guy is going to pop. And it's Alex Kirilloff with the Minnesota Twins. Now, I will tell you this. I was actually going to maybe be a little bit lower this year because he's dealing with another wrist injury. And I think he had a wrist surgery, which he had in 2019. It was like late 2019 he had another wrist surgery. He's had consistent injury problems, and especially with that wrist overall. But for the Minnesota Twins to move Luis Arraez told me everything, because they had said they think he'll be good for spring training. This should be good for the year, Alex Kirilloff. And I was like, man, I don't know about that. For them to move off of Luis Arraez must tell them something about where they think Kirilloff is going to be and where he's going to be as a part of the team. Roster Resource has him as the first baseman. I am worried he's going to miss a few games, but this is a super smart guy. His dad's a hitting coach. He's a super smart hitter. He's got a beautiful swing. Health has been his problem. I am really hoping that we're going to be cured of this. Going over at first base, hopefully, mitigates a few of it. Projections aren't nuts, but 11 homers over 87 games on Bad X is not bad. You put that over a season, you're looking at easy over 20 in a lineup that has been built around big homers and big offense in the Minnesota Twins, that even if Kirilloff is hitting like 6, they do have him lower in the lineup right now, but if he were to move up to around 6, hitting behind Buxton and Correa, a lot of RBI opportunities if he starts to pop. And I think he will, because he's always been a very advanced hitter. Health has just kept him apart, and the adjustment to the majors has really been an issue as well. But I'm just still a believer.
All right, the next one for me, number 2, I hate myself for. I mean, I hate it. Like, I don't like it. It's
Let me
gross.
look at who it is.
No, you don't see. Well, it's gross. But look,
I'm gonna leave.
I'd like you to stay on the show because we both got one more. Oh, he's off the show, folks. Okay, but here's the thing. It's gross. It's terrible. But we're just talking about one thing here. Late round power. Joey Gallo is late round power. 283. Even last year, as miserable as the season was, he still had 18 home runs. Now he hit 158. So my hope is this: a fresh start somewhere else, a clear offseason to clear his head. I'm not saying he's going to get back to that guy who was a 40 home run guy and hitting 206 or whatever. Like, if he gets back to that, well, that's great. It's great for the Minnesota Twins. I don't like the kind of player Joey Gallo is. I didn't like the kind of player he was, but he is basically free. And if you're talking about power and the opportunity, look, in 2021, he hit 38 home runs. This is not a player. I mean, we've seen this before where we write off guys and then they come back a little bit. There has been an absolute fall off to the pitch recognition skills of Joey Gallo, which is why we're in the spot we are. If the right hitting coach can get through to him, if the Minnesota group can figure out a way to fix some of those things, get some of those pitch recognition skills back on track, get him to drive the baseball again, not try so hard to hit home runs, a lot of this is mental, I think, too, for Joey Gallo. Now, he could be the next Chris Davis where he just completely falls apart again. And we are all just sitting here looking at that. That is well within the possibility of what we could see from Joey Gallo. However, cheap power, he's the definition of it. It's at a cost, which I don't like. It's not a player I want to draft. But go ahead, roast me.
You're like Harry Potter and he's like Voldemort, just like going, Joe Pisapia. Just in the back, like, I don't know why you would do this to yourself.
I've got 40 home runs for you, Joseph. I can, you know what? Just like Voldemort, he could feel my pain. He could feel it. Like Joey Gallo could put his finger on my forehead and it would
just put a big K on there for strikeout, like instead of a lightning bolt.
Actually, I go, do you want to put a backwards K? Is he striking out looking?
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's what it was.
Looking, swinging,
all right,
all of it.
Next, let's move past. I hate myself, but it's true. Welsh, you and I both know this. Would it shock the hell out of you if he had 25 home runs and hit 210 this year?
No, it wouldn't shock me. I won't be experiencing it or enjoying it, but it wouldn't shock me.
But he's on the list. All right, let's get away from Minnesota. I'm unhappy.
Yeah. This is going through the trend again of these just rookies that have really good value with big pop at 271 on ADP's Jordan Walker. Now you talked about Juan Yepaz. Jordan Walker, I think this is going to be, I gotta keep doing this, but it's going to be similar to Julio in the respect that in January and February of drafts of last year, we didn't know where Julio Rodriguez stood. I was critical. I would laugh at people that took him inside the top 200 because I'm like, what are you talking about? They're not going to bring him up. And then they did. And then because we didn't know the extent of how aggressive teams were going to be. And they did do it. And they gave him the job. There's already been rumblings that Jordan Walker is going to be given the opportunity and is very likely to break camp with this team. I know we look at it and we're like, how are they going to do that? How the hell are they going to do that? I imagine they're going to make moves. I just don't think Juan Yepaz is going to hold him back. And Jordan Walker is dynamic across the board. If he played a full season, I think you're looking at 30 plus homers, even as a rookie. Projections around 90 games with 9 homers. Steamer has him around 12. Again, this is under 100 games. 15 seems like a lock, even if he comes up a little bit later in the year. Strikeout rates are not crazy. He can run and he'll play in the outfield. I really like Jordan Walker. And I think this is a guy that, we can look back on this in about a month and a half and we're going to laugh at the ADP potentially if this team makes a commitment. 271, he'll go closer to 100 if he is given the job. Like there's no reason that Jordan Walker shouldn't be in the same range as Gunnar Henderson if he is starting the full year. The only difference between those two, besides some logistics of their game, is that Jordan Walker has no guarantee and Gunnar Henderson does. And he would push near the hundreds if the Cardinals moved Yepaz or Carlson or said it's his job to lose.
I like where you're coming from here. All right, my number one guy and Welsh's number one guy. Now, Welsh cheated the whole show, so I'm going to cheat one time because technically it's really not cheating because he was 201 yesterday when we did the show sheet. Now he is cracked. He is 198. He is the new DH of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's JD Martinez. JD Martinez, to me, if he's going anywhere around this 200 or post 200 range, and I can see this ADP starting to rise already because people are saying, what are we doing? Like we can't completely give up on JD Martinez. He's going to be 35 this year. So he's an older player. We saw the ISO drop precipitously last year from 232 in 2021 to 174. But this is a player who's had down seasons and come back from that as well. I think what we're looking for here, once again, sometimes fresh starts are good. The environment for the Dodgers is a very good one too. He does not have to carry this team. He does not have to carry the load. He's got to be a contributor. He's going to hit the 5 spot most likely. So there's going to be lots of RBI potential too. But in terms of slugging, I don't see a realm where he does not get to the 20 home run platform. I think he is going to hit that plateau of 20, most likely get closer to 25. And that's why, as long as he hovers in this range, he's the number one guy on this late round slugger list, because this is, I think, a fantastic opportunity to buy low in a player where people are afraid at this age that it's done, that it's over, and he's just completely in decline. But we've seen this before with players we thought were like that. They get a fresh start on a new team. All of a sudden, little bump. They get back to at least close to who they used to be. I am not saying this is a guy that's going to be contending for MVP, but in a way, the Dodgers kind of need him to step up and be close. Can he be 80% of JD Martinez? I think he's still got that in him. But outside of Freeman and outside of Betts, there's a lot of questions in this Dodger lineup. I mean, a ton of questions here. So they need JD Martinez to be one of the answers for them. So he's my number one guy. Again, he was 201 yesterday. He's 198 today. We'll see what happens. But to me, he's the best late round slugger you're going to find out there, because all the other guys we're talking about, I don't know if anybody else has the opportunity to get to 30. I think if everything breaks right for JD, 30 is possible as well.
I like it. I like it. My number one guy is a cheat code. He is a cheat code because no system knows where to put him or rank him or draft and rightful reasons though. ESPN I've drafted on, Fantrax I've drafted on, everywhere I've drafted on. He doesn't exist on lists, so you can get him absolutely cheap, especially when outfield struggles. And he's on a team that perpetually has players projected with higher numbers. Here's a funny thing, and I'll tell you who the player is. I was just talking about this last night on another platform with Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres is really interesting this year. And if you go and look at his splits, the expected home runs in different ballparks, Gleyber Torres, cool homers here. If Gleyber Torres had hit all of his games in Cincinnati, Gleyber Torres would have had a projected 41 homers last year. Cincinnati is just a boon for offensive production. And Will Meyers is the cheat code this year until ADP start to take advantage of it, where you can get 20 plus homers really late in your drafts. We're talking 325. Steamer projection in only 130 games has 20 homers, 6 stolen bases. The Bat X 16, ATC is 17, and those are around 120 games. Cincinnati is just going to produce more runs. That's it. Did he do anything great or spectacular last year? No, not particularly. He did hit 260. He can steal a little bit. We saw what happened with Brandon Drury when he was able to succeed there. This is similar.
Look, Eugenio Suarez became a revelation in Cincinnati.
And this is the same thing I think you're looking at. A 260, 20-plus home run hitter might be one of the better hitters in that entire lineup. He's going to get to hit probably somewhere between 3 and 5, and you're going to get a lot of RBI, and he is just far down. I'm actually impressed that the ADP has him at 325 on Fantasy Pros, because there are some places he is literally just buried down the list.
It's all about games played for Will Meyers. If he can play 150 games, he's going to obliterate that 20 home run number. I agree. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
So risk and reward there, certainly part of this list, but 325, again, free power. Everybody likes it. So Welsh's list: Ketel Marte, Josh Jung, Peraza, Miguel Vargas, Matt Mervis, Spencer Torkelson, CJ Abrams, Kirilloff, Jordan Walker, and Will Meyers. For me, my list: Joc Pederson, Michael Conforto, Triston Casas, Lane Thomas, Trey Mancini, Jesse Winker, Juan Yepaz, Avisail Garcia, Joey Gallo, and JD Martinez. I'm contractually obligated, by the way, to say his name that way. I can tell. Just so you know. No.
Also,
I'm contractually obligated to remind you, fantasypros.com/draft wizard open for business. So go get your mock draft on. Go check it out today. Run some mock drafts. Go download the app. And again, premium membership. You have access to a lot of really cool features here, and the multi-user drafts will be open at the end of the month of January. That's very exciting too. We'll be doing mock draft shows here on the show before you know it. So very exciting times there. Until then, that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.